We have not been joined by Dr. Raywat Deonandan for quite some time. He's an epidemiologist and associate professor at the Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Ottawa. Most important, he's a scientist with a sense of humor. Dr. Deonandan, thank you so much for this visit tonight.
Thanks for having me back.
So we've got hundreds of thousands in Ontario where you are, hundreds of thousands of doses of vaccine in the freezers right now. So, I guess it's wonderful that the freezers of Ontario have lots of immunity. But what about the folks?
It is frustrating. It's frustrating. I don't know what's going on, to be honest. I don't know who's making that decision. I suspect part of it is holding back second doses for those who've had their first dose, which is not a good strategy to my mind, because we're in the thick of it and we need to get as many people with the first dose as possible. And the other part of it is there is some vaccine hesitancy going on, and people are not showing up for their appointments. But I don't think that's what's driving it. I think there is an attempt to hold back second doses. Or there's a slowdown in our deployment system. In any event, this is untoward. We have to get those doses into arms quickly.
I don't want to get into the politics here because, conversation degenerates quickly. But with 700, this is the number I've got, the official number, 700,000 vaccine doses are in freezers right now in Ontario. And you still have people representing Ford and representing whatever, okay, I guess the government, provincial government, talking about how the Liberal government is neglectful. Now, the Liberal government is bringing in a vaccine. I was one of those people who said that for the longest time. And I said, I will shut my pie hole the minute that stops, once we have the freezers full. So I have stopped because the freezers are full. I just don't understand how some people in politics can pretend that we don't have hundreds of thousands in the freezers and want to blame a different government. Clearly, whoever's in charge of the action plan, the vaccination strategy, getting jabs into people's arms, something in Ontario is missing. Quebec is doing twice as well with fewer vaccines than Ontario has.
Yeah, something is amiss. I don't really know what it is. If I'm looking for reasons, we could argue that maybe the ones we have in the freezer are the ones that are harder to distribute, like the mRNA shots, and maybe we have a slow process of getting the non-mRNA shots into pharmacies where those are best distributed. So I want to say that this is a hiccup in our distribution system. I don't want to say this is a politicized response. I don't know. I really don't know.
No, and I'm not interested in politicizing it either. I'm just saying that 700,000, the reason I'm somewhat, if it sounds like I'm somewhat alarmed, is because I know darn well that if 700,000 keep lying there and are unused, at some point somebody ends up making the decision they've got to be destroyed. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me.
No, you're right. They have to get into arms quickly. I don't know what the slowdown is. There are two processes here. One is getting the vaccines, and the second is distributing the vaccines. They're both slow. Let's be clear on that. And they're both pointing at each other as being the cause of the problem. But they both have to get their act together. We need more vaccines, and we need to get the vaccines we have into arms. It's frustrating to watch. It really is. And we have jurisdictions in the province who have no vaccines, and some that don't. They can't get rid of the ones they currently have. It has to ramp up quickly, and it's frustrating to watch. It really is. I did not think we would be here. I thought that this being the single most important public health task in our generation, that we had weeks and months to plan for, that this would be a more seamless event, but it hasn't been. And I shake my head and watch in consternation.
And maybe some feelings on this side of the microphone wouldn't be as acute if I didn't look at the numbers. The numbers say that we're back to where we were several months ago with the second wave. We got thousands of new cases in Ontario, the largest province in Canada, a third of the population. We got thousands of cases being reported every day, over 2,000 every day. Those are the kinds of numbers we saw several months ago. So we got more cases, more people in hospital, ICUs filling up, etc. And once again, if I'm wrong, please correct me, Dr. Deonandan, but it seems to me the only way to kick that curve down and to possibly flatten it is to vaccinate as many people as possible. How else are you going to stop it?
It's too late, to be honest, to vaccinate ahead of this. We're going to endure the third wave. A colleague of mine, Dr. Michael Warner, had the perfect tweet a couple of days ago. He said, early on, the third wave was characterized as a race between vaccination and variants. But the variants have won. And now it's a race between vaccination and ICU capacity. And I would argue that the variants have won that one as well. And our best bet now is to enact some restrictions to slow the spread of the variants to give us more time to roll out the vaccine to prevent the damage that will occur. It's sad to watch.
What happens, in your opinion? I know it's only Tuesday, but the weekend begins on Friday. The Easter weekend begins Good Friday. What kind of behavior will we see this coming Easter weekend?
Right. So if Christmas was any judge, we're going to see some untoward socialization and exposures. But I'm an optimist. I'm endlessly, stupidly an optimist. I like to think that people will see what happened over the Christmas holidays and think, oh, maybe we don't need to socialize as much. Mind you, Easter holidays aren't as exposure-driven as a Christmas holidays tend to be. People aren't going to malls looking for presents. There aren't multiple gatherings to go to. You tend to go to one gathering, that of your family, and maybe a church, or a temple of some kind. So maybe it won't be that bad, but it will be bad. There will be some unnecessary exposures. And when I say unnecessary, I don't mean to minimize people's need for family and religion. These things are important. It's just that time of pandemic, it's a dangerous thing to be doing. Luckily, we have immunized most of our elderly, so they are likely not to suffer the brunt of this. This disease, though, has shifted its demographic targeting. Our ICUs are now brimming with those 50 years old and younger, and the highest test positivity rate is amongst, if I'm not incorrect, those aged 20 to 39. So it's now a young person's disease in many ways. And I'm concerned, especially for those young people who aren't high up on our vaccination priority list and who have jobs that have high exposures like grocery clerks and baristas and things like that. We're about to take on a whole new face of this pandemic, and I don't know if the population is ready for it yet. We're not ready to see young people suffering at this level that I hope they won't suffer, but they might.
Doctor, are most of the coronavirus spreaders right now between the ages of 20 and 40?
It does appear that way, yes. And again, there are two ways to look at that. One is to be scolding and say, hey, stop that socializing, young people. And the other is to recognize that these people are frontline workers, grocery store clerks, baristas, and often who live in group housing, who don't have the tools to socially distance. So for those who are unnecessarily socializing, I will say, hey, cut that out. You're rooting for the rest of us and prolonging this misery longer than it needs to be. But for the rest, they need our support and our assistance and tools to allow them to protect themselves. So there are two things that must happen simultaneously: personal self-restraint and societal support for those who cannot restrain.
For every now and then, I don't have to tell you, you pay lots of attention to media. You've got videos of people partying their brains off. Generally, they're people under the age of 40. Generally, they're well under the age of 40. And not just at ski resorts, but at other places. Are you telling us as an epidemiologist that while those videos may be out there, and it may be true that some people are partying their brains off and not social distancing, for the most part, the people who are between the ages of 20 and 40 who've got the virus did not receive it because they were partying? Just routine activity? Is that what you're telling us?
It might be. I don't know for sure, to be honest. But remember, every person who parties and gets it, they're passing it on to their contacts who did not attend the party. So it stands to reason that the majority who have been hospitalized were not the ones who engaged in the inappropriate activity. Okay, so the pandemic,
and that's always the way it is. It just takes a few super spreaders to create a problem. I mean, we've known this for over a year now.
That's exactly right. This is the greatest test of civic responsibility that we will see in our lifetimes, possibly. Can we deny ourselves the desire and the right to self-entertain, to save the lives and the health of our neighbors? And we fail at this again and again. Well, some fail at it. To be honest, the majority have not, right? So let's congratulate the Canadian population where we can. We've done a passable job for the most part, but enough people fail at it that we do have suffering taking place. So, and I think part of this too is that we look south of the border and see how the Americans are faring. They have a lot more vaccines than us, and New York City is vaccinating those 30 and up now, as are other states. And they're anticipating having a relatively open society by the summer, faster than us. We cannot be seduced into thinking that's us. That's not us. Right, so we have to stay put and follow the Canadian trajectory, as slow as that might seem to us, and not allow the illusion of the American lifestyle to seduce us.
So